Hey there, everybody. It's Jenny Clark with Solvability, another session of GovCon Summit. This is all with my friend Emily Harman about authentic leadership in government contracting. It's a unique role that you play as a leader at the federal level, and she's got a lot of insight to share with us. So, Emily, I'm going to let you introduce yourself and take it away from here.
Thank you, Jenny. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Okay, so today I'm talking about authentic leadership in government contracting. And the session, if you read the description of the session, it said that you're going to increase your self-awareness after this session. I think that you would, and you're going to learn a little bit more about what could be holding you back from being the best leader of your company or your organization or your team. And I'm going to give you some strategies to unleash your full potential. And that means in your personal and your professional lives. I retired after working for the Navy for 38 years. I retired in May of 2019. And when I retired, everyone was telling me what I should do. You should go be a government contracting consultant. You should go work for a large company. And I finally just stopped and listened to what my heart was telling me. And I decided this is the kind of work that I want to do. And I don't see a lot of this topic covered in government contracting related events. It's all about how to win a contract. And that's definitely important, how to find your target customer, how to price your contract. But some of these relationship, authentic leadership topics will also help you get there, and maybe sometimes faster than you think. So let's talk about what authenticity means. So authentic means true to one's own personality, spirit, or character. Not false or imitation, but real or actual. And that's a definition from the dictionary. But, probably, especially before COVID, we saw a lot of people posting their highlight reels on social media. Everything's perfect. And then that can leave some of us feeling like, wow, they've got it all together. I don't, I must be a loser. And I think with COVID, especially with like these Zoom calls and stuff like that, people have been sharing more of their personal lives and admitting that things aren't 100% perfect, and that, we're just all human. We're all here having a human experience on Earth, and being more authentic helps people relate to you better. So Brene Brown talks about authenticity in this way. Authenticity is the daily practice. Note daily and practice. It doesn't mean like I'm perfect, I'm authentic all the time, or, and being perfect isn't being authentic. So it's a daily practice. It's a practice of letting go of who we think we're supposed to be and embracing who we really are. Choosing, notice that word, choosing. Authenticity means cultivating the courage to be imperfect, to set boundaries, and to allow ourselves to be vulnerable. Exercising the compassion that comes from knowing that we're all made of strength and struggle. And nurturing the connection and sense of belonging that can only happen when we believe we are strong enough. Authenticity demands wholehearted living and loving, even when it's hard, even when we're wrestling with the shame and fear of not being good enough. And I guarantee you, all the people posting their perfect highlight reels on social media, they also feel like they're not good enough many times. They just don't share it. Especially when the joy is so intense that we're afraid to let ourselves feel it. Mindfully practicing authenticity during our most soul-searching struggles is how we invite grace, joy, and gratitude into our lives. And that's by Brene Brown, who wrote the book. She's written several books, but this book is The Gifts of Imperfection. So just remember, it's a daily practice and we can choose it. So how does that apply in how we live our lives day to day? Well, I'm going to say that if we are living a balanced life, if we're living aligned with our values, then we're being the most authentic that we can. And I'm not saying, everyone talks about work-life balance. I mean, on any given day, nothing's going to be balanced. But if we take a holistic look at our lives and see maybe on a quarterly basis or even a weekly basis, are we living in a balanced life? When you have a proposal due tomorrow, you're not balanced. You're focusing mostly on your work, right? But we can't just constantly be at the heat of stress, always doing proposals, push, 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 because then the other things on our wheel of life suffer. And so what I've got here is a wheel of life, and you can come up with your own categories for your wheel. I've got in here friends and family, your significant other, personal growth, fun and leisure, home environment, your career, money, and health. And I have a little example here of how we can evaluate ourselves in these different areas of our lives using this wheel, with 0 being in the middle of the circle and 10 being at the outside edge. So I invite you to set aside at least 1 hour. You're definitely worth it. You're definitely important. You are important, your life. Take at least an hour. It's not selfish to focus on yourself. Quiet your mind, get centered, meaning don't be worried about the past or worried about the future or thinking about all that. Just focus on this task of assessing how well your life is balanced and aligned. Use the first number that comes to you. Like if you come up with a 2 and then your mind says, that's really bad. You shouldn't be a 2, and then you adjust it to a 4. That's probably not what you want to do. Really come up with put down the first number that comes to you. And select 2 to 3 areas of your wheel that you're going to focus on for 2021. So develop your wheel with your categories. This is an example. And just think about this too. You can also do it for your company. You can select different categories of importance like financials, marketing, profitability, whatever you want. But it's good to do this analysis. And then you can go deeper with that. You can write specific goals or intentions for each of the 2 to 3 areas that you selected. And I wanted to show in this example here, this person was a 2 in this area, 5, 8, 4. So you can see the wheel's not really in balance. So write specific goals for each of the 2 to 3 areas that you selected, and then why statements for each. And you might have to ask why several times. Why is this important to me? Why did I list this? Why am I a 2? Why do I want to be a 8? Right. How important is it achieving your goals on a scale of 1 to 10? And then did you list go back and take a look. Did you list any bold actions? Are you going to leave your comfort zone? Are you going to push yourself? That's a personal decision. And then how are you going to know? How do you know now that you're going to achieve these goals? Because we all set New Year's resolutions and then, sometimes we fall short. So how are you going to know? What is it going to feel like? How are you going to know that you are achieving your goals? And how do you know that you will? What are you going to do to make sure you achieve them? What are you going to do to make sure that you take action? So some other questions to think about is, what is one key action that could bring your wheel more into balance? What's the smallest step that you could take to get started for each of your goals? And then block time on your calendar for action. Your calendar is the biggest tool for transformation. You block that time and you stick to that time. If you schedule something on your calendar and it slips 2 to 3, more than 3 times, it's probably a paradigm. We're going to get to some of that a little later about mental fitness. It's probably a paradigm, not circumstances beyond your control that are having you put that task off. Review your goals and your intentions and your why every morning and evening. When you set your New Year's resolutions, do you set them and then set them aside, or do you really set time aside in the morning to get centered and in the evening and to review what you're going for and to review your wheel and to review how well you're doing? Post a word or a phrase where you'll see it often to remind you. My phrase is conscious alignment. I want to be conscious of the decisions that I'm making, not just making them based on past habits or past assumptions or other beliefs. I want to really know why I'm making a particular decision. How's it going to help me with my wheel? Conscious alignment. I want the decisions I make, the work I take on, the relationships I work on to be aligned with my goals and values. You can even create a vision board. And then assess it often. Schedule time in your calendar where you're going to sit down and go back and look at your wheel. So you might want to accelerate your results. How would you do that? Meditating, practicing mindfulness are two ways. So is mental fitness, which is something I'm going to get into in the next presentation. But being mindful, being aware, choosing to practice this daily, making that choice and being aware when you're slipping on doing it. Invest in a coach or a trainer or a counselor is another way to help accelerate results. I've invested in so many coaches and over the past 2 years since I retired, and I've learned so much about myself. It has really accelerated my results. You can participate in a mastermind as well with people that know that you can share deeply with and that know your goals and your values and intentions and that are going to support you and also call you out on when you're making some excuses. You can read books and watch YouTube videos, and you can attend networking events, join professional organizations. You could have an accountability partner, all things that you can do to accelerate your results. I know for me, going at this on my own, when I try to do that, I don't get the results that I want. And I'm a hyperachiever, type A personality. I really get a lot done, but for some of these things that are like a change of habit, I need that accountability of a coach or a trainer. I've invested in lots of different online courses, and the ones that have coaching and accountability meetings throughout the period that I've invested in are the ones that I do, I perform better, I get more out of than the online class where, I kind of tend to blow off sometimes getting that done because I fall back into my normal habit or routine. So this is just the end of this one presentation, and I just wanted to share my website, which is emilyharman.com. I have some programs there that I offer that help in this area. You can also listen to my podcast. I host the Onward podcast, which features authentic conversations on facing adversity and moving forward and discovering ourselves along the way. And then the Onward Movement is an online community in Facebook where I post a lot about these kinds of things. It's all about embracing authenticity, releasing the fear of judgment of what other people might think so that you can create the life of your dreams with confidence. And that's what's in the Onward Movement. Lots of free resources. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn, and I provided a link to schedule a call. If you can't remember that link, you can always just go to my website and schedule a call from there. So now I'm going to go into my next presentation. And this presentation is on mental fitness. So I said at the description for this, this session, I said that you were going to increase your self-awareness. So I know that doing that wheel, and maybe it's already got you thinking, will increase your self-awareness about, is your life out of balance, in balance? Are you happy with where you are? And it will also help you learn what's holding you back. Well, by doing that wheel, you're going to learn a little bit more about yourself if you don't already practice that kind of self-assessment or taking a look at yourself already. And then I'm going to give you some strategies to unleash your full potential. And that's what this is, mental fitness, where you can grow 3 core mental muscles so that you can thrive in challenging times and unleash your full potential. And government contracting can definitely be a challenging time. I think that you all would agree. So,
oh my gosh, Emily.
Yes.
Government contracting is a big thing, and so does the technology of this Zoom call, because it's not displaying your presentation right. I don't know if it's displaying right for other people.
Okay, bring your shared window to the front. Okay, is it sharing now?
Try hitting share again.
Okay, hold on.
And one of the comments is from Melanie. My wheel is flat on one side, and I'm like, my wheel is flat on many sides, and it's been so hard to get it straight. So I'm going to come off now and let you
got it right.
Take it again. Sure.
Okay. Okay, good. So mental fitness. Wait, now when I'm in, sorry, Jenny, but when I hit return, the slide's not going. All right, there we go. I just use that. All right, so the definition of mental fitness. It's your capacity to respond to life's challenges with a positive rather than a negative mindset. And the impact is peak performance, like an athlete in the zone. Peak performance at work, at home, in your relationships, peace of mind and wellness, and healthy relationships. So I'm going to go a little bit more into this in this brief. So this is based on research from Shirzad Chamine is a guy who wrote this book called Positive Intelligence, and he combined research on neuroscience, on positive psychology, cognitive psychology, and performance science, and he put it all together in what he calls positive intelligence. He's a researcher, and he's at Stanford University. So his research, this mental fitness is based on research, and it includes results from hundreds of CEOs and their executive teams, Stanford students, world-class athletes, and 500,000 participants from 50 different countries. So there's a lot of research, and he compiled it all into his book. He summarized it into a New York Times best-selling book called Positive Intelligence. And the subtitle is Why Only 20% of Teams and Individuals Achieve Their True Potential. And it's been translated into 20 different languages. So he did some of this research based on factor analysis. You know, when you do factor analysis, it helps you discover the root cause, and it results in radical simplification. So if you look at all the colors in the rainbow, all the colors that we have all around, at the root of thousands of colors, there's only 3 factors: red, blue, and yellow. So with the results of factor analysis, Shirzad has determined that there's 3 core mental muscles that are at the root of mental fitness. The saboteur interceptor muscle, and I'll explain what these saboteurs are in a minute. The saboteur interceptor muscle, the sage muscle, and the self-command muscle. So the saboteurs, there are 10 of them, and the sage, they're on different sides of our brain. There's 10 saboteurs, and there's 5 sage powers that we all have. And you'll recognize these as we go into them in a little bit. So the judge. You might recognize the judge. You might think, well, the judge is like your inner critic, right? And that's true. The judge judges, but the judge judges more than just you. It judges other people, and our judge judges circumstances. So the judge will wake you up in the middle of the night and say, you loser, you messed up on that presentation. You didn't screen share right. You messed up on that proposal. How did you do that? You're a loser. You have a big presentation tomorrow. You're not going to get there. It wakes you up in the middle of the night with stress. You're stressing over something. So it judges you. It judges other people. Oh, that person's too tall. That person's too thin. That person's annoying. And it judges circumstances. COVID is bad. I lost that contract. It's bad. Everything's bad. And it tends to judge as bad more than it does good. So we all have it. This is a universal saboteur in our head, the judge. The judge recruits other saboteurs. And in the meeting notice or the event notice for this event, I put a link where you can take an assessment. And if you can't find it, you can go to my website, emilyharman.com, and go to the mental fitness section. You can take an assessment to learn what your saboteurs are. So when I said, learn what's holding you back, this is very telling. We have the controller, hyperachiever, restless, stickler, pleaser, hypervigilant, avoider, victim, and then the hyper-rational. I knew when I took this assessment, I knew about my hyperachiever. I didn't really think of the hyperachiever as a saboteur, sabotaging my success. I made it to senior executive. How is that hyperachiever sabotaging my success? We'll get into that in a little bit. And I knew that I was a pleaser, always trying to please everybody else, putting everybody before myself. What I didn't know about myself is that I have this restless saboteur as well. And now that I know about that, I can see it. I notice it so much. So if you read his book, Positive Intelligence, it'll describe all about these different saboteurs. If you take the assessment, this is a kind of assessment report that you're going to get. You notice that the judge isn't on here. And that's because everyone has a judge, and the judge recruits these other saboteurs to sabotage our happiness, our performance, so many different areas of our lives. So you might get your results and say, and then let's say your coworker takes the assessment too, or your husband or your wife, and you say, I knew you were a stickler. That explains why you're this way. Well, that's your judge talking, okay? These are your results, and we all need to be looking at ourselves and our results, not pointing to other people and not saying, well, my stickler is at 2 and yours is at 3 or whatever. We're not comparing scores, because everybody, the way they answer the questions has a different, different way of answering, a different range. So use this to look at yourself when you take that assessment. If you go into the book, you can get descriptions of each of the saboteurs, like this one is about the stickler. And it will tell you like the thoughts that come up for the stickler, the characteristics of the stickler. It'll tell you how the stickler impacts your relationships. So the saboteurs are in the brainstem, the limbic system, the left side of our brain. And the sages are in the middle prefrontal cortex, the sage powers, the empathy circuitry, the parts of our right brain. The saboteurs motivate us through negative emotions, fear, stress, anger, guilt, shame, insecurity. That's what wakes you up in the middle of the night. You probably don't have your sage waking you up in the middle of the night saying, great job on that presentation. Everything was so good. You're doing great. We don't wake up in the middle of the night for the most part thinking that. It's our saboteurs. And so anytime you feel fear, stress, anger, guilt, shame, insecurity, that's your saboteur telling you some lies. And we tend to believe it, those lies. And we tend to have neural pathways, paths in our brain that go right to that saboteur response. And mental fitness is being able to self-command to go to the sage response. And it takes practice. So yes, my hyperachiever helped me become an SES, a senior executive, helped me move up. But that's how it motivated me. And it wasn't fun. The sage would motivate you through positive emotions like empathy, curiosity, creativity, passion, and purpose. So the saboteur might generate success, like I said, for me, but not happiness. Whereas the sage generates your highest success and sustained happiness. That's where I want to be. I don't know about you. So somebody might say, well, aren't negative emotions good for you? That's what motivates you, right? Negative emotions are good for you. And the answer is, well, is pain good for you? Yes. You put your hand on a hot stove, that tells you the stove is hot, okay? But are you going to leave your hand on that stove for a long time? So with negative emotions, they're only helpful for a second, like as an alert signal. And we need to be able to strengthen the muscles to notice that alert signal quickly instead of staying in our shame emotions. So staying in negative emotion hurts our ability to see clearly and to respond with empathy, curiosity, creativity, or laser-focused action. So if you beat yourself up all the time because you messed up on a proposal, that's not going to help you get to where you need to get, which is to look at, how can I do better? Be creative about that. What is another way to look at this? maybe missing this proposal, this contract option, action is going to help me get better for the next time around. How long do you notice, and notice this after the presentation, do you stay in your negative emotions? Negative emotion, it's your saboteur. And one of the things that Shahzad says about these saboteurs, his students at Stanford like to call this, what does he call it? Jedi mind training. Because think about it, inside our brain, we have our own Darth Vaders, we have our inner Darth Vaders, and we have our inner Jedis, and they're kind of at battle with each other. And the reason we like Star Wars is because it's kind of telling a story about what's playing out in our own minds. So let's get to the sage. The sage lives in the region of our brain that's associated with positive emotions, peace and calm, clear-headed focus, creativity, and the big picture. And it operates from the sage perspective, not from anxiety or stress, but that every outcome or circumstance can be turned in to a gift or an opportunity. Maybe not immediately. And yes, this applies to 99.9% of the time, but you can't, if you think back on some things in your life that happened when at the time you thought, oh, this is terrible. And now it might be something you can see the gift in it, what you learned from it. So I want to read from his book, just the short story, The Stallion Story, to help drive that point home. An old farmer lives on his farm with his teenage son. He also has a beautiful stallion that he lovingly cares for. The farmer enters his stallion into the annual county fair competition, and his stallion wins first prize. And the farmer's neighbors gather to congratulate him on the great win. And the farmer calmly says, "Who knows what is good and what is bad?" Puzzled by this reaction, the neighbors walk away. Next week, some thieves who heard about the stallion's increased value steal the horse. And when the neighbors come to commiserate with the farmer, they find him again very calm and gathered. And he says, "Who knows what is good and what is bad?" Several days later, the spirited stallion escapes from the thieves and finds his way back to the farm, bringing with him a few wild mares that he has befriended along the way. To his neighbors' excited rounds of congratulations, the old farmer once again says, "Who knows what is good or what is bad?" A few weeks later, the farmer's son is thrown off one of these new mares as he's trying to break it in, and his leg is fractured. And as the neighbors gather to commiserate with the old farmer, he once again reminds them, "Who knows what's good and what is bad?" The following week, the Imperial Army marches through the village, conscripting all eligible young men for the war that has just broken out. The old farmer's son is spared due to his fractured leg. The neighbors no longer bother to welcome the old farmer to congratulate him, to come to the old farmer to congratulate him. By now they know his response will be, "Who knows what is good and what is bad?" When our judge says something is bad, we need to take that statement with a grain of salt, if not outright dismissal. Our judge convinces us that we know what is good and bad at any given moment. But the truth is that we really don't. So which perspective is true? This is bad, or this is a gift? The answer is whichever you believe becomes true. So let's get into self-command. The self-command muscle, when we coach on this, it's doing what he calls a PQ rep. And so just go with me for a second. We'll do like just a few seconds of a PQ rep. This is just one thing that we can do. Now, a lot of you might say, well, I meditate in the morning. I practice mindfulness. I pray. What's the difference here? The difference here is that you can do this PQ rep in a meeting. It's not like you have to close your eyes and meditate. Some of them you close your eyes. Others you can do while you're in a meeting and no one's even going to notice. But when you do that PQ rep, you're commanding your brain to come out of saboteur mode and into sage mode. So one way of doing a PQ rep is to just rub two fingers together with such a tension that you can feel the ridges on your fingertips. And when you do that, you might notice your brain wanting to move and think about something in the past or something in the future, and just command it to come back. And do that, practice it, and you'll feel yourself come into your body and be in the present moment. And then you can move to the sage side of your brain and take clear-headed action. So if you're feeling negative, stop. You're in saboteur mode. Do some PQ reps to quiet the saboteurs and activate your sage. And then assume the sage perspective that every problem can be turned into a gift or an opportunity. You might have to get creative to see it. And in his book, he gives an example of a company that lost their biggest customer. And it was the worst thing that they could ever think of that happened to them. But they were able to turn that into an opportunity. Generate the gift by using the sage powers like empathy, curiosity, creativity, and calm, clear-headed action. So is it really possible to just shift from saboteur to sage response, even in tough challenges? And the answer is yes, but the speed and depth of the shift depends on mental muscle strength. You know, most of us are fairly physically fit. You know, we can go for a good walk, but if it came to climbing a mountain, we'd be out of breath. Imagine the mountain is a big, huge challenge. How mentally fit are we so that we can handle a big, huge mountain? We can if we practice by building our mental fitness strength. You don't go to the gym and lift a weight a few times and then get strong enough to lift, you know, a huge weight many times. You have to practice. It's the same with mental fitness. We need to practice to build up this strength. So lasting positive change requires insight. Yes, like you're getting insight out of this briefing. How many times have you gone to a conference with all this insight and you go back and fall into your old habits? It also is going to take mental muscle. Knowing what to do and actually doing it are two different things. So success requires intense initial practice. You can't defeat a gang of 10 bandits, all those saboteurs running around in our head. We can't defeat them by just sending in a new fighter once a day for 100 days. What Shirzad has determined through his research is that we need 15 minutes a day, at least 15 minutes a day for 6 to 8 weeks to create a new habit, to be able to strengthen these mental muscles. And he's developed this mental fitness program. It's 6 weeks in duration, and this is something that I coach on now. You get weekly, my dogs decided to play. You get a 1 hour video each week. It's 1 hour's worth of video, like broken into 5-minute, 10-minute chunks. Every week you get that video delivered on your mobile app. And then you're able to watch that video, and then the app guides you in 15 minutes of practice every day through that app. Different exercises, different PQ exercises, not just the rubbing your fingertips, but there's others. And then the app also comes with 8 chapters of the Positive Intelligence book. And then there's also a weekly group accountability meeting that meets once a week that I guide, where we talk with members in our group about what we gained, what knowledge we gained, what we got out of the video, how our practice is coming, and we hold each other accountable. So I've got more details on my website if people are interested in that. And then the other thing that I did publish just recently in this session is I published a handout, and it's about positive intelligence for teams. It's about how 20% of teams never achieve, only 20% of teams achieve 80% of their potential. Is your team one of the 20% high performers or one of the 80% that is settling for less? And it talks about how this mental fitness coaching program can help with culture in your organization. And it's got some results from Shirzad's clients. I've just started coaching in this, but for example, Motorola recorded improved productivity in 93% of trained employees. L'Oreal said that strengthening these competencies resulted in 91,000 increase of sales per person. MetLife trained the trained salespeople outsold the control group by 37%. So think about this not only for you as a person, but also for your company, as well as your family. Family members can go through it as well. It really helps in all areas of your wheel. Mental fitness can help. So I'm going to stop sharing and see if anyone has any questions.
Oh my gosh, Emily, that is so amazing, because what we're always looking for is what can we do to make small incremental changes that are helping us get better every day. And I'm so glad that I signed up for that program. Really looking forward to having the app. I've had other apps that I've done successfully. And I just think it's going to be great to have a little group that we can talk about this. It's funny. Yeah. When you talk about sages and saboteurs, and how on our planning trip for GovCon Summit, you brought this up, and we all took the thing, and we all had different saboteurs, and we all said, oh, I'm so awful because this is mine. And we're like, well, everybody's got something. Mine was people pleaser, hyperachiever, and avoider. Mm-hmm. So the combo pack for me is somebody that always wants to make everybody happy, but avoids taking action, like super procrastination, because I just don't want to do it unless it's perfect. And the awareness of that helps you go a long way. And it's almost like when we started comparing, we go, oh, I can see that. And actually people have called me out on it, say, Jenny, what's showing up for you right now? I'm like, oh, I could take a different approach now that I'm aware. Hey, yeah. Carolyn has a great question.
I love this comment.
Yeah, Caroline is saying, I was reflecting on how important this mindset shift is for GovCon and entrepreneurship. If you tell yourself nothing is working out, then it won't. But when we tell ourselves each action, connection, email, call is leading toward our goals and objectives, so it shall be. Yeah. What do you think about that, Emily?
Oh, I completely agree. I mean, I would not be where I am now with starting my company. This is one of the reasons why I wanted to coach on this, and why I want to coach about creating a life of your dreams as well, because you know, without the coaching that I've had in the past 2 years, I would not be where I am now. I used to always be telling entrepreneurs, as the head of small business for the Navy and the Marine Corps, you know, what you need to do. But now I'm setting up my own company, and I know how mentally challenging it is. And I know my saboteurs are getting in my way, and having a friend like Jenny that I can reach out to, being in a mastermind, being in these coaching programs with that accountability to keep me going when I feel down, because we all feel down, and we can kind of look at people and say, well, that person has it all together. But no, but building, you know, like the insight is only 20% of it. And yes, this is why I brought this to this conference, because it will so help people in the GovCon space, because that is not a minor mental fitness challenge to overcome. That, you know, small mental fitness, you need strong mental fitness in order to do well in government contracting. Not just you, but your team, your leadership team, people on that work for your company. Imagine, if you could, what it would look like with all these saboteurs running around in your company. And if everyone knew how to address them, how much more effective your company would be. So that's why I said you can learn about, like, find your niche, know your target audience, what's your product service code, what's your NAICS code. If you've got these saboteurs in your brain, they're going to still be there. But if they're really sabotaging you, none of that matters.
Well, you're absolutely right about that. And it's really funny, because whenever I do my sessions, they're all about financial logistics or pricing or cost or whatever. And people go, oh my gosh, I hate that stuff. I could never do that. And I'm like, I love that stuff. I'm really good at it. I'd be happy to. But what I don't want to do is call people up. I have this big thing over, and you can tell that I could talk to anybody, but the whole idea of setting aside the time to call people and talk to them one-on-one, it's like, I waste so much time on the getting up to it. And that's part of that avoider. Yeah. It's really funny though, when you start doing it, and especially if you're in a group where there's other people that are surrounding you and just kind of reminding you, wait, are you sure about what you're telling yourself? because that is really what tears us down. We're so accustomed to, and especially anybody that's been a higher achiever their entire life, it's almost like, hey, if I can't get an A, I'm dropping the class.
Yeah. Imagine if your wheel, so Melanie said your wheel's flat on one side. I bet you if you practice some of this mental fitness stuff, you could expand your wheel. It would be better. It helps in all areas of your life. The quicker you can catch yourself, Jenny, avoiding those calls and move to the sage mode, the more effective you're going to be.
Right, because a lot of this is practice and getting used to it. And I thought it was funny where Melanie said her wheel was flat. And whenever I've looked at those wheels in my entire career, and I always looked at it and said, well, if I had enough money, this wouldn't be a problem. And, you know, it's almost like, oh, if I had enough money, I would do X. And if I had X, I would do that. But you're all about being present in the moment. What do you mean by that?
Well, it's like, you know, that's conditioned based thinking. And it's thinking that when this happens, then I'll be happy. That's your judge telling you that. When this happens, when I buy this, when that happens, you know, somebody posted recently that I saw a little comment about how like our goals are like the horizon and they're always going to be expanding and growing and they're always going to be there. And you've got to enjoy that journey along the way. And that's what that being present is. And it really starts with awareness. For the longest part of my life, I was not aware. I thought, well, meditation or practicing mindfulness or slowing down is for other people. I'm a hyperachiever. I just can't do that. Well, when Shirzad says 6 to 8 weeks, that's what it took for me to be able to slow down. I wanted to practice mindfulness. My coach would say, Emily, I want you to practice for 15 minutes once a day. And every time for 40 days. And every time I met with her, she'd say, what day are you on? Well, 2. Why? You don't understand. I'm busy. That was my hyperachiever judge, right? I'm busy. I've got this, this, and this to do. You don't even get it. But when I finally did those 40 days straight, my life changed. I was more in flow. I was more at ease. And then this mental fitness is just like icing on the cake. It's on top of that because it's not just practicing in the morning, but you'll learn how to practice your mindfulness while you're washing the dishes, while you're petting your dog, while you're talking to your child, and not having your mind go all over the place, not having that inner war of the Vaders and the Darth Vaders and the Jedis.
Well, you're absolutely right about that. Whenever I think about it, to me, mindfulness and meditation is about slowing down. And it's very hard to do because I always thought, well, I'm tougher and I can do this and I can take this on. So I'd love to hear Stephanie's question. Stephanie?
Well, I'm just getting on, but Jenny, you mentioned something that is me all the way. I really have a problem calling someone, knowing that I have to do it. I'm thinking I'm going to hear it enough to the point that I'm just going to say, forget it. I'm just going to do it. You know, I don't know what it's going to take, but I need to get with Emily because, wow, this would help me because like Emily was just saying, I'm so busy here. I'm so busy there and I have this to do. And I'm so tired. I really am I'm mentally tired. I had an episode this weekend. I did nothing Saturday and Sunday, and that's not me.
When you're able to slow down, you can actually go faster. It's counterintuitive. It doesn't make any sense, but I finally figured it out.
Emily, I just this weekend, this past weekend, I went through it, and I started Monday tired, which could explain what happened yesterday because I was tired.
Yeah, well, it's all about getting the kind of the peace so you can get enough sleep so you can get what you need done. And we're so accustomed to thinking, oh my gosh, well, I've just got to get this whole list done. I'm Superwoman and I can do it. And we certainly can do it, but at what cost to other things? And is what we're doing really important in the big scheme of things? And that's really where Emily's helped me so much about, you know, setting goals and saying, what do you really want to do? What's your intention here? And that's been so hard for me. It's like, I don't want to slow down and define that. I want to keep going. Emily, any last thoughts before we wrap it up?
No, just, you know, some people might think, oh, this is, not important. I got to go win government contracts. But, for the people that get it, I know that you get it because it is important. It is going to help you win government contracts. It is going to help you be happy and live a better life, and be happy, not based on circumstances, but be happy from within.
So Christy, I see you're on there. Do you have another comment?
Oh, just fantastic presentation, Emily.
Thank
Excellent
you, Christy.
presentation. And having that mental fitness as an entrepreneur, especially in the GovCon space, is key.
Mhm.
So, and understanding the saboteur, how cool is that? So great job. I really appreciate it. And I learned a lot.
Good. Thanks for
Yay.
participating.
You got it.